Charleston and those in communities across the country gathered in prayer. The governor of South Carolina, Nikki Haley, is calling for the death penalty in this horrific crime as friends recall the racist views harbored by Dylann Roof. We're just now hearing about them. We're joined by retired Lieutenant Detective Steve Rogers now on set. Steve, it seems open and shut. We have the guy. Apparently he's confessed. He's going to be charged. But there's still a lot of police work to be done. What's the top priority today?
Well, the meat of the investigation now begins. Now that they have a suspect, Jenna, they're going to look at his computers. They're going to look at his cell phone records. There'll be an electronic footprint that God knows where it will lead the police, but it may lead them to a lot of evidence and answer the question, what in the world was the motive?
That is the big question still today as to why, apparently, according to reports, hate was the source of it all. But what specifically would you be asking today, and where would you point your team?
I would want to know if he had a connection to any homegrown terrorist group, all right? And that, you could call them hate groups, bias groups, whatever, but an act like this is an act of terrorism. And if he was connected to some group like that, then the charges should be elevated from a bias crime to a terrorist act.
Okay, so we're going to wait for that. What about copycats? What about security today on a very practical level, whether it's in Charleston or otherwise? How concerned are you about that?
Well, you're always concerned about copycats. There will be increased security, I'm sure, in many churches in many areas. But Jenna, I would hope to the good Lord that what is copycatted is the way the people of South Carolina have handled this. They are a role model for bringing this country together, for the love and the faith that they have communicated to the entire world. So that, I hope, is copycatted more than anything else.
So you say really that community in Charleston is a role model for everybody?
Jenna, there's a scripture in the Bible that says what man meant for evil, God turned for man's good. And those people there have done that. They lived up to that promise of God.
Again, going back to security, what about that in churches across our country now? Obviously, people are going to be nervous for good reason when something like this happens.
Well, that's right. And we don't, I'm sure there'll be security, but it'll probably be security you can't see. You won't see uniformed armed men and women outside the churches. That would frighten people. But people need to take comfort in knowing that their church pastors, their police departments, they're very vigilant, very aware, and they're going to do the best they could to protect everyone.
Who around Dylann Roof would you most want to speak with?
I want to go to his dad. I want to find out why that gun was given to him or why he had access to a gun. And the dad, unless he was a totally absent and absent-minded father, he had to know where this young man was going, who he was associating with. Words had to be spoken to somebody. And this young man, this killer, if you will, spoke to somebody in the past, as I mentioned yesterday, and he used the word, I have a gun and I have a plan.
You know, the timing of this is something else we're looking at today, a wide variety of reports, and we're working to confirm independently that his sister was getting married this weekend. What do you make of the timing of this crime, that event? Do you think there's a tie somehow?
Just a brutal, cold, calculated killer, didn't care about anyone, sits in a church for an hour and then executes people. This guy had no mind at all. But it goes to this point. If you hear something or see something, say something. Maybe he said something to somebody, and that somebody's probably scratching their head today saying, I should have said something.
We're going to be talking with a former FBI profiler about that, about how you know when's the right time to speak up. And that's a big question I'm sure we're all thinking about today. Steve, it's great to have you on the program.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. John?